the fact that everybody will provide you with some challenging things that you don't necessarily have to like. And you don't have to necessarily like everything about yourself. But you can love it. This is a key difference. You can embrace even things that are difficult. And by doing that, and you embrace it in a non-attached state. You just pull yourself back a little bit and you allow it to breathe. You feel whatever you're feeling about this particular situation. I don't like this, and why is she doing this to me? Why is he doing that? All of this kind of stuff. You feel it, yeah, you don't repress and deny it. But then you do this simple practice, and with that practice, you can literally feel yourself rising above it. My teacher Rudy spoke a lot about that, rising above it, rising above it. And when he first said that, I didn't really quite understand what he meant, but when I started to have that experience myself, of energy really moving in the system, melting down this, many of these tensions, and feeling more flow, and feeling more joy in just being alive, and doing whatever you have to do every day. I feel myself lifting up, basically. And I could see that, the same things that I really thought of and experienced as a big rock in my way became little stones that I can walk on. And the perspective was different. And when you rise above something, literally, if we rise above the earth, what happens to our perspective? Do you see more or less? Hell of a lot more. If you rise up high enough, you basically see the whole universe. And this is the idea, when we get released from all the things that are pressing us down. And mostly what's pressing us down is what's between our ears. Or all our patterns and thoughts and worries and all of that. So much energy goes into all that that is really not necessary to spend energy on. And we have a way, breathing into the heart, opening, and then letting go of whatever comes up. This is something that we can do on a regular basis, every day, no matter what it is that we're facing. And in our lives, we have different phases, all of which are challenging, aren't they? You're a teenager, and suddenly you have to develop your identity and be somebody, get an education, function in society. Then you become a young adult, you got to look for a mate, and then you have to decide, am I going to have 0 children or 10 children or somewhere in between? And then that happens, and then or doesn't happen, and in either case it's difficult. If it doesn't happen and you want it, then it's something missing. And if it happens and you discover that, well, gee, this is a hell of a lot of work, I wish I didn't do that. Or, then it's too late. Then it's too late. But even with that, we can deal with it, as I'm sure you are doing, Jayadeva. You are dealing with it by rising above it. And that's why I call the practice rising energy practice, because it really is what we are doing, and it's also what the energy inside us does. When it warms up and you have more energy at the base of the spine, it naturally becomes like a steam and goes up your spine. You may not have any big experience of that, but by continuously feeding this system inside, that does happen. And sometimes you might have a dramatic experience of it. I certainly did, and some people do, but other people have a very gentle experience of it. Oh, suddenly I have champagne bubbles in my spine. Whoa. And it's, blissful. It really is blissful. Doesn't mean that everything automatically becomes blissful in your life. You still have challenges and difficulties, but by having a certain attitude and having a practice that can take those difficulties into your system and digest them, then it does become energy flow, and that energy doesn't have any problems. It's what we are thinking about it that creates the problems. So all of that is easy to say, quite challenging to actually do. But you know, it's a fabulous goal to have, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, it becomes a rudder on your ship or your boat. Anytime you get off, you're over here, you suddenly discover, oh, how the heck did I get over here? I'm suddenly being a nasty person. How did that happen? I don't want to be a nasty person, or I don't want to be a sad, depressed person, or whatever. Then you say, well, gee, how do I get back to where I want to go? I want to move in the direction of more joy, more freedom, more love, more compassion in my life. And that wish is very powerful. It can bring you back on course, and you sit down and you work with it, and then the magic of our life as human beings is that we can beat up on ourselves day in and day out for a long time, and we can have other people beating up on us for year after year, but we still have the opportunity to find fresh life in ourselves. Because that energy is always pure. It's always no problems. It just flows. And it just is. And we can reach for it, and we will find it if we dig deep enough every day. Many people are afraid of this deeper energy when it starts to wake up in us. Because what does it mean? You know, you get expressed a little bit like that, you know, and this is a very natural reaction, because it means that we have to change. And it's not that we have to beat ourselves up about anything, that we are, but that if we listen to that deeper energy, it tells us what we need to do. Life is the best teacher. And so if we listen, we will feel, oh yeah, I need to shift a little bit in that direction, I need to open a little more to this, I need to whatever, you know. The norm is that you've got to be in control. You've got to control your life. But this is really a self-defeating thing, because then what is it that is controlling? It's your identity and your ego. If this deeper self is controlling, that requires letting go. And letting go into that deeper silence where that energy springs forth naturally. Oh, and then you say, gee, how did I get here? Or, I don't know where to go, so I just keep asking. Sooner or later, something comes from deeply within you, something that is much more intelligent than the ego. The ego comes with its strong limitations and tendency to create conflicts for ourselves and others. Yeah? Yeah. So this open state is really fabulous. In that open state, there's really nothing to chase after and nothing to cling to. Think about it. What do we chase after? We think we have to do this, we think we have to do that, we think we need this, we need that, and why don't I have this, and why don't I have that, and why did this leave me, why did that leave me, all that, you know. So I would like to, at the end of these 3 days with you, throw down a challenge to you. Try to really live without chasing and without clinging, and see where that takes you. This means accepting what is given and giving what is needed. This is very hard, challenging to live by. But to the degree that we can do it, we save ourselves a lot of trouble, and you will actually feel yourself, if you can, to the extent that you can do it, rise above yourself. And you'll see new doors open if you allow the ones that are closing to close and suffer through that a little. There's pain in that. But if we resist it and cling to it, well, then new doors can't open if we're constantly banging on the one that's about to close. So it's a very simple and very practical way to live. But the thing that has to happen in order for it to benefit you, of course, as you guys who've done it now for a long time know, is you have to do it with some regularity. Preferably every day.